Hey, bag ladies and bag dudes. I'm Sarah Lawson from So Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Ask Sarah, my weekly Q&A chat. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me this evening. I'm so happy that you could make it for the live chat. And if you're watching the broadcast after we're off being live, thank you so much for watching the show when you can. So I see Dawn's watching. Hey, Dawn, how you doing? Lisa, thanks so much for joining us, Lisa. I see Kim from Ontario, Scrapping Goddess. I like that one. Suzanne's watching also. And if you're in the United States, happy Thanksgiving to you this week. Tonight we have a sort of a serious topic, but I really wanted to spend some time talking about this. And before I introduce the topic and introduce my guest, I wanted to say two sentences which I feel are super important for tonight's topic, and that is, I hear you and you matter. So I'm going to say that one more time because I feel it's so important to me that you hear these words. I hear you and you matter. So tonight's topic came about because I have a lot of people that I know because they have emailed me privately, and any private emails stay just between me and you. But in these emails, they've told me that they have trouble connecting with others, perhaps leaving the house. Something traumatic may have happened to them either currently or in the past, such as family abuse. Also, they may be suffering from chronic illness or caring for a family member with an illness. And any of these reasons have caused them to turn to sewing for comfort. So I am honored that some of you have chosen to share your stories with me privately in the past. I know it takes a lot of courage to share your story with somebody else, particularly somebody that you have not met in person before. And I want everyone that watches my shows to feel included, even if you don't feel comfortable talking in the Facebook group or commenting in the live show. Even just by you watching, you are definitely part of the community, and I thought it might be helpful to talk about some things on my show so that you don't feel like you are alone. So now I would like to introduce my guest for tonight. My guest is Dr. Stephanie Palmer. Dr. Stephanie Palmer is a clinical psychologist, and I would just want to stress this before we get to talking. Dr. Stephanie Palmer is not giving anyone specific clinical advice during this show. Please always seek advice from your doctor first, and we've also put this in the description as well as some helpful links that Dr. Palmer has provided to me before the show so that we could include them in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. So Dr. Palmer, thank you so much for joining me for Ask Sarah tonight. I am so thankful and grateful that you were able to spend some time with us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And as we're coming up to the holiday season, I think it's really important to talk about these things because the holidays can be tough for some people. And so I really appreciate that you're offering this to your community and giving people a space to talk about it.
Okay, great. So just so we can get to know you a little bit better, please tell everyone what your sewing and quilting background is like. What have you done in the past, and what kinds of things do you like to make?
Okay, so I'm on the show as a clinical psychologist, but I'm a quilter, and so that's why our worlds have collided here tonight. And so I started quilting probably about 7 years ago, and started, of course, with baby quilts and baby fever, and just progressed to trying as many new techniques as I can get my hands on, which is why I love quilting, because there's always more to learn. And your bags and the videos that you provide people, I could never do bags if it weren't for you and for the kinds of tutorials you offer. So I really love that, and I'm just starting to dive into the bag world more, which is exciting and hard, but exciting. So and then I'm also, my other business is the Quilters Planner, and that's how you and I know each other. We've worked with each other before. So I'm glad that you have one and use it. It's really sweet.
So let's, now that we've discussed what you like to do in your, I guess, free time, now let's talk about, as a psychologist, if you could give everyone a brief summary of your work and why you wanted to be a psychologist.
So I was always one of those kids that, when your friends started to have an argument, that I would try and help find a solution and make everybody calm down and look at all of the different alternatives. And to this day, I still am a person that sees a lot of gray in everything in life. I can always see more than one side of a situation. And I just like thinking about things and problems and the world in that way. And I also really love to connect with people and hear people's stories. And so as I was growing up and going to school, I thought, what can I really do that I would enjoy every day of my life? And I figured that was it. My uncle was a psychologist, and so I got to see how he put that together in his life and created a really meaningful career. So that's the path I took. So I got a PhD, and I began my career working with kids who have cancer and their families. And then I had a private practice as well, working with people with all kinds of problems.
Okay.
And now I've also gone into this world of quilting and created that as a business too, because, they don't always tell you this one thing for the rest of your life. So you can do lots of things.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So as I mentioned in the start of the show, I have a lot of people that watch the show that have contacted me privately that have something going on in their life that causes them lots of stress. So maybe an illness, they're caring for someone with an illness. Perhaps their illness has caused them to not be able to do some of the things they used to love doing. Trouble connecting with others in real life, such as not wanting to leave the house. Any number of different things. Are any of these things fairly common occurrences?
Well, most of them are things that we all will experience at some point in our life to some degree of severity. And the severity may differ from person to person, but they all are quite common. When you think about it, they all are kind of transition points in our life. Most of us at some point will care for a sick parent or child. Most of us will have an injury at some point that may be difficult to overcome, or have someone in our families who's very sick. These are common things. And then sometimes the situation resolves itself, but you're still left with the aftermath. And that can be hard, and that can be long lasting. So yeah, it's common.
Okay, I think that's an important thing to stress because what I try to think about when I respond to some of the emails that I get is I definitely always say that I can't imagine what that must be like, because some of these things that people have experienced, I have not experienced. So I don't want to brush it off as, oh, I'm so sorry about that, or I don't want to brush it off and don't want to say that I understand, because sometimes I don't, because if I haven't gone through that, then how can I understand? But I just want them to know that I hear what they're saying, and I appreciate that they wanted to share those kinds of things with me. So my next question is, what kind of comfort can sewing as a hobby provide to anyone when dealing with challenging situations in their personal lives, or even when dealing with everyday stress? I know there's a definite difference between chronic illnesses or abuse and just everyday stress. So what can people do to deal with either one of those things in regards to their sewing?
Well, let me first say that when you first got in touch with me, I let you know that I also get a lot of emails from people about these issues too, and I agree with you. It's not fair to just say to people, "I understand this is hard," and because we don't always understand. But I think it's also important for people to know, like you said at the beginning of the show, that you're there, you do hear them, and you do want to connect with them, and that's just the important thing about being human. And you put yourself out there in these live shows, and I just think it's really special that you're there for your customers and your fans and for the people that love you. So I just want to say that first before I go on to your question. It's just really wonderful that you take the time and you really do care. I think people can tell, you can feel it right through
Thank
the
you.
computer.
Thank you.
But to your question about, so the relationship between sewing and maybe dealing with depression or anxiety, that's kind of what you're asking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's interesting because there's research that has kind of shown that there's something about sewing or crafting in general that can help with problems like depression and anxiety, and those being like big blanket kind of problems that people may experience. And it also can be a good stress reliever for people with chronic illness. And the reason for that is kind of twofold. The research has looked at it in two different ways. One is that there's something about repetitive motions that give us relief in the brain. Maybe it's stimulating the release of some neurotransmitter like serotonin or dopamine. Something's getting released that's causing you to relax, that's causing your nervous system to calm down. So that's one. It's like a very physical reaction. The repetitive motion of working with fabric, of running it through the machine. And we've all felt that kind of calm feeling that you get when you're really in the zone and in grooving, So the other side of it is, if we all think about when we've been deep in a project, there's less room to ruminate. And by ruminating, I mean thinking about those same problems that we have over and over again. We kind of have a well-worn path in our minds for the same things that we repeat to ourselves and worry about. That's ruminating. We all do it. Some people maybe fall into doing it more than others, and that's a strong link to people who are experiencing depression and anxiety. They're more likely to ruminate more. When you're doing something like sewing, there's a little less room to ruminate about those things because you have to focus to a certain extent on what you're doing. Or the video, like if you're watching Sarah, you have to focus on it. So it puts a stop to that pattern. So those are the two reasons.
Okay.
And there's other activities too, other than sewing, that help people that the research has shown. And I think it's the same kinds of reasons. And like gardening has been proven to show an improvement for people. Listening to music that you love definitely soothes. Exercise, as we all have been told over and over, but it's true. Even if it's just really mellow exercise like Tai Chi or gentle yoga, moving the body is really important. And getting outside in nature. These are the things that we need to try and get ourselves to do every day.
So when you mentioned ruminating and sewing doesn't leave a lot of room for that, do you think it matters if the repetitive part of the project is something simple like just patchwork squares in a quilt, or if it's a bit of a harder project like making a bag but maybe with a video? Do you think it matters if the project is simple or more complex, like if the person has to think through it more? Do you think that matters?
I think there's space for both things. Like there's room for both of them in your life. You might have to choose carefully and pay attention to how it's making you feel, and that's really important. You can make notes about things like that in a journal and try and pay attention to how you feel when you're doing a certain thing. So like something like patchwork, very repetitive and simple, or embroidery is an excellent example. Hand embroidery, that's kind of allows you to just focus and calm yourself, but it can be so repetitive that it allows the ruminations to hop back in. You just have to pay attention. On the other hand, if you take on a challenge, I think that's really good for dealing with depression and anxiety. It's important to push yourself a little bit and challenge yourself and try and grow. Don't get too set in the things that cause you to just relax and be like, yeah, I know that. It's good to challenge yourself, but you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So you need to make sure that if you're going to take on a new challenge, like making a bag or foundation paper piecing, that you do it in a way that you have guidance, support, steps, videos, something to lead you so you don't feel alone and left out in the cold and not being able to figure it out.
Okay, so do you think if someone's intimidated by either a sewing or quilting project before they begin, do you think it's still a good idea to start something like that if they're a little bit intimidated? Is that fine?
I think it's great as long as they make sure that they've set up resources for themselves before they take on the project. Just to, for example, and I know people have done this, just to take on English paper piecing without having a plan for the resources you can call on can be anxiety producing. So you need to make sure that you know what you're going to turn to and take baby steps. That phrase baby steps has been around for a reason for a long time because it's proven, and it can think about how much pride and confidence you feel when you've mastered something. And as long as you're doing something with support, you can achieve that. And I think it's a great way to go to help yourself with anxiety and depression.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, even though sewing can provide comfort in the home, I'm assuming most people sew in their own homes. Do you think it's still important to reach out to people for comfort as well, whether it be in real life or online?
Definitely. And we're lucky. I mean, there's a lot of negatives that are spoken about social media these days, but our ability to connect with others across the globe is just completely different. And I know myself, as a mother of four, I've had trouble getting out of my world and my little
Mm-hmm.
bubble. And I've been able to make connections online with my closest friends now that I get to work with and talk to every day using things like Facebook Messenger, or texting, or um, it's been a wonderful thing for me personally. So I think you can really use that tool yourselves as well. Um, there are even online support groups now that weren't around 5 years ago that you can do it. And we link to those in the
Mm-hmm.
bio as well that you can check out. If you feel like you can't get out and it's not realistic for you, then I think that that's a really good option for people.
Okay, excellent. Okay, that's good to hear because I feel like most of my friends are online, so it's good news that it's just important to have online friends as real life friends or family members.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a suggestion for some coping strategies that people can use, whether it be for their long term challenges, such as mental or physical issues, or for short term challenges, such as stress? So, are there any sort of coping mechanisms that people can turn to if the stress start to come on?
Yeah, I think that the things that we listed earlier are things that you should be tracking in your daily life, making sure that you are finding ways to connect with people socially. And if it's not getting out of the house, then maybe you can do it online now by connecting with people. Um, if you're a busy mom, for example, finding a few other moms that you can even check in a couple times a day with and even laugh and say, hey, how are you doing? That's connection and that counts. Or if you want to try one of those online support groups or Facebook groups, they have a lot of benefits now. If it's a private Facebook group, you just want to make sure it's a supportive one, that you try to connect with people whenever you can in a positive way and support each other. Some other things that you can do, as we mentioned before, and I think tracking these in some kind of journal and making sure that you're doing them every day is a really good tool to use, because it's very easy to let it go and just think, yeah, I didn't get out in the outdoors yesterday. I didn't take a walk yesterday, but maybe I will tomorrow. And if you actually write it down, you can visually see it and you can see your progress, and it really improves the likelihood that you're going to do it more. So the things I think that you should probably be doing: getting outside, physical activity, connecting with others either in person or online, um, taking on a craft like sewing, gardening, listening to music. These are the things that we can do that are coping mechanisms to help ourselves. Uh, and I think that they're little things, but they can have a big impact.
So when you mentioned writing things down, does that mean, say, for example, in my quilter's planner, after I accomplish whatever the task is, so for example, walking 20 minutes or whatever, after I finish that, I should be writing it down
Any
on
kind
my
of journal.
calendar? Okay.
Absolutely. Any calendar, any journal you have, anything that is something that you can look at and have a visual representation of what you're doing. There's things that you can download online if you Google it, habit trackers. We have one in the Quilter's
Trackers.
Planner, but you can find a
Okay.
habit tracker anywhere. Um, I'll show you. I don't know if I hold it up on the screen if you can see it, but I'll show you what it looks like. Can you see this clearly? Oops, where am I going? There we go. So
Yes.
you can write the name of the habit that you're trying to work on, like taking a walk every day, and then you can just bubble it in, color it in to show yourself that you've
Okay.
done it. And then at the end of the week, you have a visual representation of the things that you're working on. So not only the Quilter's Planner, you can download habit trackers online in all different formats that you find pleasing to look at, and it's a really great tool for helping your own mental health.
Okay. That's a great idea of keeping track because I know, and I'm not comparing exercise with some of these other tasks, but I've been trying to exercise the last couple weeks because I had a trainer teach me some exercises that I could do at home. And I noticed in this past week, some days I tell myself excuses like, for instance, after dinner, oh, I'm too full, I can't exercise now. And so the day goes by and I haven't exercised, or, oh, this was a really busy day, I just didn't get to it. And then the week's gone by and I've only done it 2 or 3 times. But I think
Oh,
using that habit tracker, I think for me would, or, with any task, like you mentioned some of the other coping strategies, I think seeing it on paper would make a huge difference, and seeing if I'm following through or not, if that makes
right.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about putting it down on paper, and that's the whole reason that I'm in love with doing the Quilter's Planner, just because it's the idea of putting things down on paper that really makes things real, and it helps move me forward in my own life with achieving my little goals. And I have to say, I have the same struggle with exercise that you do. The busier we get, the harder it is to squeeze it in. But even the little things, like think how much better we feel even when we do something small. And it could be physical therapy exercises that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
That really can increase the endorphins in your brain. Makes you feel good, much better.
Yeah, I do feel good when I complete my exercises, but boy, is it so easy to tell myself an excuse for why I didn't get it accomplished.
Isn't it
That's
amazing?
so easy.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I have one more question for Stephanie, and then we're going to open the question up to the live viewers. So if you have a question for Dr. Palmer, please go ahead and type it in the comments now. Danny's going to select a few questions, and Dr. Palmer will answer some of your questions live. So go ahead and do that now if you have a question, but I'm going to ask her my final question, and that is, do you think there's a relationship between the frequency of sewing per week and our mood, so how many times a week that you sew, and does sewing more often tend to make people in general happier and less anxious?
Well, I think as we talked about before, the research says that yes, it does help people feel less anxious in many circumstances. But it's hard to say if there's a direct one-on-one correlation of both going up. But I think that to a certain extent there is, as long as you don't put too much pressure on yourself to get too much done. And we've all probably been there. And coming up with like holiday gift sewing is an excellent example where you could be feeling really good, doing the things you love, and then you hit this point where you fall down the hill and it stops feeling good. So we have to watch out for that. Actually, we just did an article for the Quilter's Planner that I'll add for you to your links about how to maintain that sanity and happiness when it comes to taking on sewing gifts and giving gifts to others for the holidays, because that can be tricky. So you got to watch out for it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's nice to make gifts for loved ones, but there's only so many gifts that you can make without increasing the stress level of getting them all done in time. So
I think realistically, most of us can get 2 to 3 handmade gifts done. Some people that can really crank them out, and if you have a smaller thing. And the other thing that you have to watch out for, we all struggle with handmade gifts, is how much are we invested in the person's reaction in getting a handmade gift? And what's our reaction, and how much do we take on ourselves if perhaps the gift isn't appreciated in the same way we wish that it were? And that all plays into how we feel about ourselves, our anxiety, our depression. And you have to really be careful that someone else's reaction is their reaction. It has nothing to do with the beauty and the quality of the work that you put in. When you decide that you're going to make a gift, especially a quilted gift that maybe takes 20 hours to create, you have to do it in the way that says, I'm giving this with my heart, and whatever their reaction is, I accept. And that leads you down the road to feeling more healthy about it.
Okay. Well, that's great. I love that. Okay, so Betty, watching on YouTube, has a question. I wonder if there's any research on how fabric purchases increase our endorphins.
Oh my gosh, Betty, if I were going back to school to get my doctorate again and I could pick a research project, this would be it. Because I swear, it's like, whew, our brain would light up if we did an MRI during the time that we're fabric shopping. I really believe that too. It feels good, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Jan wants to know, how do I go to sleep when I have so many ideas in my head that I want to do and keep thinking about them?
Such a good question. Personally, I keep a notebook by my bed because I have the same problem. And, okay, I'm going to go off into a little tangent here, but it's a really important one. Those ideas that you have when you're trying to go to sleep are wonderful, because usually they happen when you're in the first phase of sleep, when you've released your inhibitions, those things in your head that usually tell you, oh yeah, that won't work. Oh no, somebody already has done that. Oh, that would just end up being a mess. You don't have that voice anymore. That's why those ideas are so brilliant. So you should listen to them and try and jot them down to a certain point, but you also do need to get your sleep. So that's when I really do love using meditation. We use it in our house at home now. There are some fantastic apps available for kids and adults that are meditative apps that you can listen to. They walk you through something called progressive muscle relaxation. And you've probably experienced it at some point or heard of it in your life. It's where you scrunch up your face and then you relax it and each body part. And that is the most proven way of relaxing yourself and also focusing on some external to the spinning ideas in your head. So,
Oh, interesting.
yes, listen to the ideas, but then know when you need to say, okay, that's enough, and turn on your meditation app on your iPad or your phone and let yourself go to sleep to that.
Interesting. I didn't know about the meditation apps.
Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones.
Is that time consuming, or how long of a process is that before bed every night?
About 7 minutes.
That's it? Oh, I could do that.
And usually you drifted off before then. I'm for adults right now, but can I give you that resource in my head? I can't think of them. Can I give you the resource later to share? But I'll tell you, if any of you are watching and you have kids, there's an app that I love called Moshi, M-O-S-H-I.
Okay.
And it leads kids through progressive relaxation and mindfulness and meditation. And that's the one that I fall asleep to most nights with my kids. So I have the other ones on my phone, but that's the one that I've become used to. I love it. So.
Excellent, Moshi. I'm going to have to look at that tonight before bed.
It's really good, but I'll look up the adult ones too.
Okay. Lauren says, when you already feel so overwhelmed where you can no longer find joy in sewing, how do we get back on track?
So that can be a real telltale symptom of depression. When you no longer find joy in the things that you once found joy in. It actually has a fancy name. It's called anhedonia. And when you experience that, that's a red flag for yourself that you need to find help. You need to talk to a professional. You need to find a support group. You need to explore other options. All of the things that we're talking about tonight are important to do as well, but you may need to go one step further and get some external help. That might be finding a therapist in your community or trying those online support groups that we talked about. But no longer loving those things anymore is a big clue that you need to do something more.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Lawrence says, question for Dr. Stephanie. Habit tracking, is that good for your goals and things you need to focus on, like getting out for yourself, talking to others in private also?
You can use a habit tracker for anything that you want to improve upon, and you can set little goals for yourself, like you said, getting yourself out, walking outside for 15 minutes, or perhaps saying hello to 2 or 3 people when you're out running your errands for that day.
Okay.
Mark it off on your little habit tracker. You've accomplished that goal. You can even use it for more physical things like drinking more water, something that most of us need to do, or having a whole day of eating healthy. You can really use it for anything. And I know that there are free versions online for habit trackers that you can use.
Okay. Kim says, I would like to know more about a quilting journal.
All right, so that is the Quilter's Planner. There's some others out there, but this one is the one that is my pride and joy and my baby, the one that Sarah's holding up. And I'll show you the 2019 version that we're selling right now. There's 2 different cover options. Designed by, if any of you like Bonnie and Camille fabric. Camille Ross Kelly is our featured designer this year. And so what makes this journal unique is that it has monthly calendars and weekly calendars, so you can track, you can write down lists of things you'd like to do for the day, and the habit tracker that I showed you earlier. But it also has quilting tools in it, so you can work on your projects, writing down all the projects that you're working on and putting out individual projects. It really becomes kind of a scrapbook in time of what your quilting year has looked like. So a lot of people end up using this to create a plan for themselves on the projects that they want to work on, but then they save it because they can look back, even if they've gifted those things that they worked on, and be like, yeah, that's the year that I did that, particular quilt pattern. And it also has a reference section. So it's got all the information you need about how to make flying geese, or how many half-square triangles you can do with this much fabric, things like that, and graph paper. So I enjoy it, and I created it because I was trying to be a quilter and be a mom and keep all of my appointments, and I was just kind of a disaster, and it's really helped me. So I kind of selfishly created it.
So Kate kind of has a follow-up question. Can it work if I do not quilt?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really geared for people who enjoy looking at fabric and sewing. And so even if you don't quilt, but if you sew, you would probably like it more. But it would work for anybody. It really would, as long as you like looking at pretty pictures of quilts. I didn't mention that, but we have also, it comes with 13 quilt patterns and sewing patterns, and it has really pretty pictures in it. So I think it would work for anybody, though.
Yeah, I don't make a lot of quilts, maybe 1 or 2 quilts a year at this point, but I write all my ideas for sewing tutorials in, certain pages, and like there's a lot of room for different planning. So you can be planning even if you're not making quilts, just making bags, the projects at a glance
Absolutely.
section, you could have all of your bag patterns that you're planning on making. There's sections for fabric chosen. Have you cut it yet? You can tick the box. Did you assemble it? All that stuff. So
yeah, those steps are pretty much the same with whatever
Yeah.
we're sewing. So it would work for sure.
Andrea says, question, how many of us make promises to others but fail to keep promises to ourselves, such as exercising and eating correctly?
It is so true. Why is that true? It is so much harder to do things for ourselves than for our family members, who we never want to let down. It's very true.
Or even pets. I know we got a bearded dragon recently, and I'm always on top of, all right, did she get her fresh veggies? Do I need to go to the store for this or that? And the bearded dragon is eating, organic squash and collard greens every day. And some days I can't even make myself eat an apple. So I don't know what's going on with that, but definitely better. We are better at taking care of others than ourselves.
That's true. Very true.
Manuela says, can sewing become an addiction? We do joke about the fact that we are addicted to buying fabrics and more fabrics.
That is true. I think it can become an addiction. We're talking about this whole time about how healthy sewing can be for you, but there are times where we go over budget. We don't pay attention to how much we have and appreciate how much we have. And that can cause problems in our life if we don't pay attention to them. So you make a good point. Everything is best done in small doses and in moderation.
Yeah, that's an
Even
important
sewing.
point. Yeah. Kim says, I have a full-time job to support my sewing addiction.
Yeah, right. It's a wash, so you're even, right?
And and kind of tying into the meditation, Charlie says we have Alexa play thunderstorms. That's really
Oh, I
interesting.
love thunderstorms. I love the rain. That's one of my favorite sounds to fall asleep to, is just rain. I do love that. White noise kind of sounds.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Actually, in one of the apps that I will find the name of, after I can look through my phone because I have it, you can actually create your own collection of ambient sounds that you like. Like you can choose a particular type of rainfall. They have 10 to choose from, because one person may like thunderstorms and the other person may be terrified of thunder and just want pure rain. So you can choose whatever you love and an underlying piece of music that you particularly like, and you can add chimes. It's really cool, all to just help you zen out at night and calm those thoughts.
That kind of reminds me of a little funny tidbit, but when I go to sleep, I like everything to be completely dark, completely silent, and Danny likes the opposite. So he likes he's been used to falling asleep with the TV on and that kind of thing, and I like no lights.
You need a sensory deprivation chamber.
Yes. Montana Wendy says, do you think that any really good research is being done to improve treatment of panic attacks or panic attack disorder?
I do. I think that there's a lot of promise for doing feedback therapy. And there's some exciting things going on that I'm looking forward to learning more about. And I'll tell you that I am looking into a program for children that I just signed up for called Mightier, and I'm trying to learn more about it, where it teaches, this is really interesting, and it's an example of research. Video games, very popular nowadays, right? For kids and adults. So this is a video game, and it teaches you those progressive muscle relaxation and other relaxation and calming skills. Progressive muscle relaxation is one of the tried and true treatments for panic disorder, but it is hard to implement that when you're in the middle of a panic attack. But it's still, there's promise for it. So this is a video game. You get really into playing. The video game stops, and you can only play the game again when you've actually successfully used the skills to calm yourself and get your breathing under control and slow your heart rate through the techniques that they teach you. And you wear a heart rate monitor while doing it. So it's kind of a method of using biofeedback in the home with video games. And I think this is really cool. I know. I think there's a lot of promise.
I want to try it.
And it's, I know you love video games, Danny. I know that about you. So it's actually a research study through Boston Children's Hospital. So it's happening. I think we're going to see good things in the future.
Oh, excellent. Michelle says, question for Dr. Palmer. When your body is failing you in so many ways, how do you tell or convince yourself it's okay to not be how you once were and not feel like you're letting so many down because you just can't be who you used to be?
I think that you, Michelle, are kind of almost answering the question, because what you're doing is talking to yourself. And that's called cognitive therapy. It has a fancy name, but you're doing it naturally. You are catching those thoughts, which are kind of bullying you into feeling bad. You're catching them, talking back to them, even out loud. Don't be embarrassed. Talk to yourself and say, it's okay. I don't have to do everything that I once did. It's okay if I slow down and take more time for me and focus on the things that I need to do to help my body be in the best condition that it can be right now. I think it's an important tool.
Nikki says, Sarah, you did a cork cover for your quilter's planner, didn't you? I did, and I'll have to add that link to the description. But there is the Easy Leather notebook cover, and we had an add-on for making a cover for the quilter's planner.
I still want to try it myself. I need to order some cork from you and give it a try. It's kind of one of those exciting new things I still haven't gotten a chance to play around with, so I'm excited.
Dawn says, can we buy the Quilter's Journal, Quilter's Planner online? Yes, there is actually a link in the description if you just want to see more pictures, what the planner looks like, some of the projects that are included, right, Stephanie? They can see.
Yes.
You
can
website.
See in our About section, you can look at pictures of what's inside. And within the next few days, I'm going to put a walkthrough up of the planner so you can see more of the pages. And it comes with a beautiful magazine. I don't have mine with me right now, but with all of these patterns in it that are just lovely. And some of them are other pattern, not just quilts, so other sewing patterns as well. Not any garment sewing, but bags and things like that.
Anita says, what about when you are surrounded by people that feel therapy is a sign of weakness?
So I think that that's something that you have to just consider carefully who you talk to about what you're experiencing. And there may be some people in your life that are really a part of your life who you have learned that that's not the right person for me to tell that I am choosing to do this. Not right now. Right now, my focus is to get the help I need until I'm more confident, where maybe it doesn't matter so much what those other people say. So you just have to be careful, because not everybody is there to be your champion. And there are some people that aren't so focused on helping lift you up and raise you up. And that's a fact of most of our lives. And it's just difficult when sometimes those people are right in your home with you. And that makes it even more difficult. But I think you still need to get the help you need and not be afraid of doing that.
Gloria says, is there a smaller version of the Quilter's Planner?
So we're about to come out with these adorable pocket note planners. They're about 3.5 by 5.5, and they're not dated. They have some project planning pages in them, so you can list all the different projects you're working on, not just quilting projects, and that you can plan individually. And it has some graph paper, just a place to jot down notes. And they come in a set of 3. They'll probably be up on the website within a day or 2. And so we'll be having a special on them for the weekend for all of the Cyber Black Friday stuff. So keep an eye out for those.
Awesome. That sounds really helpful to tuck into your purse.
Yes.
That smaller size.
Yes, I love having it with me.
Is that okay?
Oh, yes. Actually, Danny's
first question up.
Okay, we're going to do a question, then someone else has a graphic we can put up on the screen. Gina says, how can we say no to others when they request we make them projects without feeling guilty?
I think we all experience that as quilters and as sewists, bag sewers, because people see the beautiful work and the things that we produce. And I know that I'm faced with it too in my life. And usually I just explain to people, it takes such a long time to make these things. I wish I could produce more, but I can only do a little bit here and there. And you just have to not feel guilty about it. I'm sorry, I can't. Sometimes people will want you to make things and offer to pay you, but you know that they wouldn't be able to reimburse you the amount of time and energy and expense that you put into the product. And you just have to be honest and just say, I'm sorry, I just can't. And remind yourself, again, talk back to those thoughts in your brain. I'm not going to let myself feel guilt about that. Only do what I can do.
And Kitty posted a link to the Quilter's Planner, and there's a graphic Danny put up on the screen.
Oh, hi, Kitty. Thanks for sharing the picture.
So that's the Quilter's Planner in the blue, and the magazine that comes with it is the one on the left with all the projects, right?
Yeah. And Kitty Wilkin she does beautiful photography. And so she's done all the photographs in the book for the last 4 years now. And I love working with Kitty, and she's an important part of, we do a lot to pack the planner and the magazine. So it's really worth the amount that you're paying for it. We give you as much as we can and more. And
Excellent.
you can find Kitty at Night Quilter if you want to check her stuff out too.
Awesome. Emily Ann says, is there any way to use crafts and sewing to overcome physical chronic pain?
I guess the question would be what kind of physical chronic pain we're talking about. I think that there's a way to do it, and it might be something that's worth talking to a physical therapist about with the specifics that you're dealing with to find out if that particular motion is healthy for you, or if maybe there's something you need to do to modify it to help you more.
Okay.
If I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I know it's not that this is the same thing as a physical therapist, but when I was being shown exercises by a professional trainer, I told her what issues I was having. I told her specific issues and what what types of things I needed to strengthen. And she gave me exact things to help me, and they've definitely been helping. So again, not the same thing as a physical therapist, but certainly talking to a professional, like you mentioned, is really important because they know the ins and outs of everything that you're going through.
And it makes me think too that maybe what your reader was really talking about was focusing on pain is one of the ways that it feels bigger in our lives. So if we're not working on any craft or hobby, we don't have a focus for our time and energy, we can really start to pay a lot more attention to whatever aches and pains we have. So perhaps that's where the direction of what she was asking. And I do think, again, there's less room for ruminating on the things that we're worried about, or upset about, or even the physical pain that we're feeling when we're doing something else. So for that reason too, I think yes.
Okay. Anita says, question, do you think we punish ourselves by denying a favorite pastime after the death of a loved one?
I think sometimes we feel guilty when we start to feel pleasure after we've lost somebody that we love. Like maybe it's too soon, maybe I shouldn't be letting myself find this joy. But we know that moving on is a part of learning to live after we've lost somebody, and we have to let ourselves do that. So I do think that can be a way of punishing ourselves and feeling guilty about it. But I encourage you to let yourself find joy again and do that for yourself.
Okay.
It's a really great.
Donna says, what do you do if you really don't have anyone to talk to about stuff that breaks your heart?
Well, as Donna, I really think that there's a lot of opportunity in the online world now to find someone to connect with. Of course, making sure that it's a safe person and a safe relationship, and it's not somebody that's asking anything of you financially or physically. But there are opportunities out there, and a lot of the time it can be in the kind of Facebook groups that we have in our sewing world, in our sewing community. There's some safety and comfort in that. And I would really Look to those friends that you know you have something in common with. You share a common love for making something beautiful every day, and look for people there that you can connect with. And it's always surprising to me just how much better I can feel if I can have one quick text to my friend Kitty about something that I saw during the day that broke my heart and made me feel sad. And she'll say back to me, I saw that and that made me feel sad too. We've shared in that moment together, and there's some relief in that. Even if I don't have time to do that with 20 people or people every day in my world, just one person can make you feel a lot better.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you, Dr. Stephanie Palmer, so much for joining us for Ask Sarah. I really appreciate it, and I learned so much tonight. I felt like I got a lot out of this chat.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, and I hope
Thank
you
you
all
both for
out there
having
did
me.
too.
It
Thank
was a lot of
you.
fun. Thank you so much for letting me be here and talk about it. I hope I get to connect with you all online in Sarah's group and other places soon. And everybody take care and be well during this holiday season.
Okay, thank you. And again, there's some links from Stephanie in the description if you need any extra support. Check those links. And again, if you need any additional advice, please do talk to your doctor first. And again, we really appreciate you watching Ask Sarah. Again, happy holidays, and we'll see you again this Sunday on the live show on Social Sunday. So have a great week and happy sewing. Bye, everybody.